Hey everyone, how's it going? Steven Psihogios from Late Night Hockey here, and I'm joined with a very special guest, Chris Wassel, one of the most connected people in the fantasy hockey and hockey industry. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show tonight. Really happy to have you on.
Hey, it's always good to be here, and look, it's like coming out from the dark, so to speak, or in this case, after dark.
After
Uh,
dark, yeah, late night hockey, right?
hey, I miss this with all the cancellations and postponements of games. I mean, there's been some Saturday nights where it's like, well, what do you mean this slate ends at 10:30, huh? It was kind of nice to see tonight. Hey, there's a few of these, later games, which means inevitably, hey, we've got something at least to watch after midnight.
Exactly. Yeah, it was loaded up at the 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock time slots, and then we had the lone 10 o'clock game. But we're going to start with the matinee today. One of two. We had Ottawa at Winnipeg, and then here's the first of I think a few for us, at least a couple of curveballs on this slate as far as upsets go. Ottawa edging out Winnipeg with a late Brady Tkachuk goal, but for me, Chris, the biggest takeaway has been the play of Evgeny Dadonov. He seems to really he's starting to get comfortable in that Ottawa offense, particularly with Colin White on that line.
Yeah, I mean, look, Colin White is capable of doing this, and he'll do it for stretches, and he'll get people enamored at least a little bit, and then he goes away. It's unfortunate, yeah. It's like being waved hello, and you go, oh, it's like a shiny new car, and then you realize the shiny new car is a Pinto, and unfortunately, it doesn't run so well, but at least for a little bit, it's like, hey, you know, he's doing well. He sees the ice well enough, and he's able to find Adnoff, who, let's face it, can score goals and can still score goals. And Winnipeg found this out the hard way again today, where it's like, hey, we don't start off well, and this is what happens as a result.
Yeah, and I thought it was a game where they did start off well, and actually the script was kind of flipped because Winnipeg, they usually get progressively better as the game rolls on. Today, I thought they actually got progressively worse. I thought Ottawa
Worse.
was taking it to them in that third period, and they walk away with the 2-1 win. And yeah, Dadonov, 3 goals in his last 4 games played, so he's really starting to heat up. The second matinee was Vegas at San Jose. And if you had Vegas, you were bailed out big time by that power play today. 3 for 5 on the man advantage. It was a second straight game, I'd say, from Vegas where we saw a less than stellar 5-on-5 effort. But part of that obviously has to do with Shea Theodore being out. But when you have a power play this talented and loaded as well, we saw today it can win you a game or two from time to time.
And they needed it. And every person I know that was either betting that game or watching that game said the same thing. It's like, where's Vegas? Where are all the scoring chances? And it wasn't there for most of that game, except for, you guessed it, on the power play, where they had like about 7 or 8 really dangerous chances, and you thought, well, maybe they could have even gone 4 for 5 or even
Yeah.
5 for 5. It's crazy. It was just like the complete opposite. Play a little better defensively than expected, because let's be honest, this look, this is a team that gave up 11 goals in 2 games to LA.
Yeah.
Let's let this sink in, ladies and gentlemen. LA, again, LA. You have to say it that many times. It's like Beetlejuice, only worse. But, and you looked at it too, and you were wondering, okay, well, 3-1. Definitely didn't think that was going to happen at all. And now you kind of have to wonder, it's like, well, how the biggest, I guess, takeaway for Vegas is, okay, we won, but God, how long is Shea Theodore actually going to be out? Because
Yeah.
nobody's really saying anything as to what is wrong with him. Look, some things, and games we'll get into later where there's injuries and we could figure out, okay, this is what's going on. But Theodore, nobody seems to really quite know. And look, Peter DeBoer is about as tight-lipped as they come. I might have a little experience with Peter DeBoer in New Jersey, and trying to pry injuries out of the guy
We can't
is
even get a starter out
than,
of him. We can't even get a starting goalie out of him on most nights until puck drop.
you can't get a starting goalie out of him. And look, even Lou Lamoriello, I could at least somewhat get something out of him. Unfortunately, let's face it, it's just not one of those cases where, okay, fair enough. We'll call it a day on that one.
Boston at the New York Islanders, and the Islanders win this one 4-2. And it was a very defensive first matchup. You kind of come to expect it. The first time Boston played New York, the Islanders won 1-0 off a late third period goal. And it was more of the same today. And then I think in the third period, we saw Boston look a little fatigued. You got to remember, this is their second straight game and back-to-back, and also their third game in 4 nights. But really the biggest takeaway, aside from the defensive stalemate, has to be Matthew Barzal just excelling and playing at a very, very high level this year. This is his 8th straight game with a point, and he has 13 points in his last 10. So Barzal's been lighting it up for the Islanders.
Yeah, and the big thing for Barzal is he's getting chances. His shot volume is sometimes just non-existent, or let's put it this way, it's not where it should be. But his production and the fact that he's basically a threat anytime he's on the ice is always there, especially against Boston for some reason, where he tends to find open ice even against the Bergeron line, which is
not easy.
Pretty damn impressive. I mean, this is. I mean, look, there are things that can't be explained, like Travis Zajac, averaging like nearly a point a game for like 10 matchups against Boston at one point. But this is. I mean, look, you could see the fatigue a little bit, which is true. But the one thing I noticed that the Islanders always tend to do against Boston that few teams can do, they seem to always have a guy in the slot. And they always find a way to get that one, maybe 2 guys plugged in the slot, and it leads to opportunities later. The transition goal, for example, to make it 4-2 is they just got behind the defense. It's that simple. And they were able to do that from, like you said, the fatigue, but also the fact that, look, the Islanders have just enough acceleration and team speed to scare even a team like Boston. And something that will get lost in this game, that second and third period, when you look at the overall pace in that game, and then you start looking at the box score and you go, okay, so there were only 3 power plays in this game, but the 2 teams somehow combined for 72 shots.
Yeah.
So you look at how slow that first period was, where it's like, and then you look at the second and third, it's like, well, the second Boston was able to somewhat keep up, the third they ran out of gas. The great joke, by the way, Boston is 0-2 against the Islanders, averaging 1 goal a game.
Yeah.
I know it's a very small sample size, but nothing on the power play. But Boston's 31% against the rest of the league. And look, to be fair, they had problems against the Islanders last year too. So this isn't something that like came along suddenly and people should be surprised by it. It's maybe a sign of the times, perhaps. Boston just has trouble against a couple teams. Well, one was Tampa Bay, obviously, and the other one happens to be the New York Islanders.
Yeah, and you look, those are both teams that made the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're both teams that I think are able to match Boston as far as forward depth goes. So you look at the Islanders, they play definitely 4-line hockey. Tampa Bay with the additions they had at the deadline last year, adding Coleman and Goodrow, they were able to play four-line hockey as well. And I think that is where you can create a sort of a stalemate with Boston, because they like to keep – everyone talks about, obviously, the Bergeron, Pasternak, Marchand line, and that's a great line. But Boston, they still love to mix in those second, third, fourth units. And the Islanders are one of those teams that they're also physical enough to keep up with Boston's style of play. And we've seen teams that don't back down for Boston, like the way Tampa Bay stood up to them last year. It was like, okay, you can gain some respect. And like you said, they always have that guy in the slot. When you play that physical style of hockey, you earn that space on the ice as well. And the Islanders definitely seem to be finding a ways to do that against the Bruins. Like you mentioned, they had success last year against Boston, and they're finding it again this year. We'll move on to the next game, Chris. This is a game I know we both thought was going to go a certain way, and it just didn't happen. Tampa Bay, Florida. We both liked Florida coming into the game. You look at Tampa Bay, they're beaten up. No Stamkos. No Cirelli. Really, you're wondering, okay, they just kind of got beaten pretty badly by the Panthers the other night. Let's see if Florida can keep this momentum going. And after that 4-minute power play the Panthers had in the first period, especially from that end of the first carrying over into the second, it was all Tampa Bay Lightning. They exploded for 4 goals in that second period, Chris, and the game was pretty much done after that second period.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look. Now, I'll say this. Andrei Vasilevsky played much better than anybody could have expected under the circumstances. Again, two major guys out. And, we still don't quite know how long Steven Stamkos will be in protocol, and probably taking pictures like he did doesn't help matters. We don't think he's tested COVID positive. It doesn't appear like it. Perhaps someone in that picture did. We'll sit there and play like the old picture pages from Nickelodeon, where it's like you figure out, well, what doesn't quite belong here. But in this game, like we had mentioned, key point in the game, 4-minute power play early.
And the penalty, too, worth mentioning, was to Victor Hedman as well. So they were without their best penalty killer for 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's not like it was like, I don't know, insert fourth liner here for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it wasn't that took a Patrick Maroon going.
It's their best penalty killer.
Yeah.
It's not even close. And Florida mounted absolutely nothing. And that was the game. It really was. You kind of just sat there, and I looked and I saw they didn't score, and I'm like, well, on to the next one, because I know what's going to happen here. Right?
I've seen this movie before.
I've seen it way too many times where, by all rights, Team A should beat Team B, and Team A completely galaxy brain something that should not happen, and as a result, Team A not only loses but gets humiliated at home.
Yeah,
usually these things happen when there were fans in the arena, which makes it even worse. But in this case, it was one of those things where, you had a weird goal bounce off player so and so. You had this happen, you had that happen, you had Florida hit a couple posts in the game. Okay, the outside of the post, but still, I mean, you just sat there and chalked it up to, well, this just went completely south. But you got to give Tampa credit too. I mean, look, they scored 6 goals against a very good Florida team that has played well at home. Their power play at one point the other night was tied for the league best with Washington.
Yeah. It was rolling. It was rolling their power play, especially.
They have one of the better second units in the league. They're balanced. There's no question about it. And of course, it helps to have Patrick I should say a healthy Patrick Hornquist in front of the net. able to take some of the heat off guys like Barkov, Huberdeau, Ekblad, etc. And something that, a lot of us have noted, Ekblad is getting his shot through this year. In previous years, he just wasn't. Maybe there just wasn't enough zip in the fastball. To borrow a bad baseball analogy with this, but there's something to it at least. And tonight, Tampa Bay took that away. They took the special teams completely away from Florida, and then they took the game away from him. And that's a testament to John Cooper's game plan. He knew his team was going to be outshot and potentially outchanced. So I took a little fun look at this game because, well, God bless natural stats trick in all its glory.
Yeah.
And there was a couple interesting, like, weird things with this game that people might not have noticed right away. So I kind of tinkered around with Steven a little bit. And this will come in handy for one of the later games as well. Maybe something with some guy named Christmas Garland, affectionately. You want to, anybody wants to anger people, just mention the name Christmas Garland. He has a name, I know, but unfortunately, here's how tonight went, and this is how you knew possession wise things were tilted. Panthers even strength carried a 58% Corsi 4 and relative. Here's the twist in this. The Panthers really did not dominate this game until it was too late.
Yep. Yeah, it was a stronger third period showing, but like we said, the damage was done after that second period.
Here's the crazy number that people are just going to go, huh? So, high danger chances tonight, and this is where literally the game was won, lost, and etc. First period, Tampa had none. Okay. The third period, Tampa had, you guessed it again, none. The second period, Tampa had 7.
Yeah.
7. Now, for a team that is tired, etc., they had 7 high danger chances. Oh, by the way, 4 of them went in.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a nice.
So it wasn't as if how do I put this? It wasn't as if Florida gave up some goals that were like, I don't know, like the Martin Jones yacker the other night.
Yeah, it was just efficient. Tampa Bay just was, when they got their opportunities, like they do. They're one of these teams that are very good when they get their chances, right? And we saw that tonight with Tampa Bay. That's why I got you on the show, Chris. Great stat like that, because it really didn't seem like. I thought maybe at the end of the first, Tampa Bay started to look a little bit better after they killed the penalty and they kind of settled in, but the third period, like you said, it was a too little too late effort from Florida. And another team that was not too little too late, it actually was the right time, even though it came late, was Montreal against Toronto in the next game here. Montreal waited until the final moments to really pull this one out from underneath the Maple Leafs. Toronto got up early, and while Montreal did win, Chris, I've been talking about this a lot on Twitter. Montreal's offense still tonight was not a performance that you put in the bank and say, this is an encouraging effort from the offense. They scored 2 goals. Both of them come late. But I just think that we're seeing the regression period now for a lot of these guys. Even though you saw Tyler Toffoli score, Gallagher got a goal, I still think guys like Anderson, Toffoli even though, like I said, he scored, they're going to start coming back down to earth a little bit. And Montreal, like I said, they win 2-1, but this is now the 5th straight game that the Habs have played and have scored 2 goals or less.
They did look better in the third period, though, and that was the key tonight. They finished extremely well. I
Yes.
mean, you start looking at across the board, and especially at even strength. I mean, it's funny to look at. I mean, you look at the chart now. This is fun to look at, and there's like a little spike like late in the second period where you see like the game flow, and it's like, oh, maybe Toronto has this. And then at the last 3 or 4 minutes of the second period, Montreal just took over.
Yep.
And that lasted, amusingly enough, right into the first few minutes of the third. Oh, by the way, in this 6-minute time period that Montreal absolutely dominated, Frederik Andersen probably played his best hockey of the entire season.
He made some big saves tonight for the Leafs. Both goalies I thought were
This
exceptional.
this may be the hysterical part in all this. You almost could have sat there tonight and said, this game kind of deserved to go into overtime. You don't often say that about a game, but it really did.
Yeah.
And, this one did. Obviously, the late goal. And after the late goal, funny enough, the game was dead even for the last couple minutes. I mean, you would expect it maybe Toronto to have a little bit of a push, but they really didn't.
No, and it was one of those instances where like you kind of maybe expected Montreal to get progressively worse because Toronto had been off since Wednesday. The Habs were playing their third game in 4 nights. So it's maybe one of those scripts where like similarly to Boston and the Islanders tonight, you saw the better rested team get better as the game went on. And this one, completely different. I think what we saw tonight was desperation maybe start to kick in a little bit for Montreal. They've got a week off now, and I can guarantee you the last thing they wanted to do was head into this week off having lost 4 of their last 5 and not having much to show for offensively. So I think you saw a little bit of that creep in with the Canadians. And usually – and it's funny, I find in sports, like when the reverse is happening, when a team's rolling heading into an extended layoff, I think you see them take their foot off the gas a little bit before that last game. They're kind of looking ahead to their plans for the upcoming week. But I think Montreal tonight, it was a true, okay, we don't want to stew on a bad performance for the next week. Let's make something happen here. And you saw it tonight. They took over in that third period.
It's kind of funny because I was talking to Dave McCarthy from SiriusXM a little bit tonight after the game, and the first thing he says, like exactly what we have just mentioned. It's like somebody, for the lack of a better term, the equivalent of how can I put this? In some of the American cars, we have what you call on the top, the grab bar or the bar. And it's as if Montreal said at the, towards the end of the second period, like, oh, wait, we have to do something here.
Yeah.
And the other thing I noticed tonight, even on the Montreal second goal, and I saw this a few times tonight, and I'm wondering if this is kind of a little bit of a design play. Now, obviously, Gallagher gets position. And you're seeing this more, defenseman flips it from the point. It almost hits the forward in front deliberately. Like the defenseman is aiming for the forward just to like get the play to become disrupted a little bit.
Yeah.
And it happened in the Islander game on the Peugeot goal. I think it was the second Islander goal. And it happened here as well. It's interesting to see that this design play seems to be permeating through the North Division in particular, but also the East. You don't see this happen in the West very often, but nobody really has a way of stopping this. Especially, look, Gallagher has weird superhuman strength in front of the net. I don't know why, honestly. I'll be honest with you, Steve. I don't know why Montreal didn't think of doing this more often. It's like a box out play in basketball. It's the same thing. And I keep, it's like, well, why didn't you try this earlier? And I guess maybe you could only go to the well so many times.
Yeah.
But it worked, and it worked well. And Montreal was able to, again, salvage 2 points. Like we mentioned, Toronto really only had that one very good chance late, and that was the only good chance of the period that they had.
Yeah.
They really did not have much left, and I thought for sure Toronto would be the more rested team, the fresher team, and have at least a few more chances in that third period, and they got progressively worse as this game went on.
Yeah, desperation will make you do some crazy things, and I guess Montreal was feeling the pressure tonight. And next game, St. Louis at Arizona. These two teams have played, what is this
Wow.
now? 6 games in a row, 5, 6 games in a row now, and I think there's
Yeah, we're on game 6 of a 7-game
game
epic
6
series
of
here.
a 7 epic. So, and they've all been very good hockey games to watch. Like, I understand that Friday night's game was maybe a little not as entertaining because the goals weren't there, but I still found it entertaining to watch. But St. Louis and Arizona tonight, St. Louis off the heels of a Jordan Kyrou late game tying goal wins the game in overtime. Just a beautiful snipe from Mike Hoffman in OT. But I want to talk about Jordan Kyrou. Anyone who, you follow me on Twitter, Chris. Anyone who knows me knows I've been pumping Jordan Kyrou's tires up all season long. And this kid, it was a 6-game goalless drought that he snapped tonight. But you just watch him play, and you could just see that this time that he's taken to development has been put to good use. And now, 22 years old, he is fitting right in, and he's a counted upon member of this team now as far as offense goes. There's no Tarasenko. We know that the Blues don't necessarily have the most illustrious list of high-end goal scorers on their team, but Jordan Kyrou was proven to be a nice blend of goal scoring and playmaking ability. And we saw that on display last night with the playmaking. And tonight we saw it with the goal scoring, a beautiful goal he scored, just picking the corner on Antti Ranta.
Hey, I mean, I said it best even a few hours ago. Kyrou has this release in a shot that reminds me way too much of a very young Joe Sakic. It's just fast.
Yeah.
And you can't prepare for it. The closest guy that I've seen maybe at least from the West is probably Connor Garland. Has a similar type release, and it's nice to see 2 of these younger players that are finally actually getting a chance to do something. I mean, look, the biggest argument with Garland is Garland was having these great like shots per 60 rates. And it's like, why is this guy only playing 11, 12 minutes a night? And Kyrou is somewhat, a little bit of the same, but I mean, at times, and of course, people will say, "Oh, from the infamous words, from the limited amount of time that I've seen him play."
Yeah.
And it's almost like you joke sometimes that's almost like a veiled hint of, well, if they played this guy like they should, he would be pretty. And sure enough, these guys are playing 15, 16, 17 minutes a night now. And magically, look at that. Connor Garland's averaging 4 shots a game. Kyrou's averaging around 3 shots a game and almost the same amount of scoring chances, which is usually pretty absurd. I mean, usually you see it's like about a 2-to-1 ratio. There's 2 shots, 1 scoring chance. In Kyrou's case, it's about like 1.2 shots to 1 scoring chance. And it's fun to see. I mean, the enthusiasm and the creativity that Kyrou brings on a nightly basis. And, you mentioned it just a little bit ago, no Vladimir Tarasenko, but he is on the road trip.
Yep.
So
I saw the video.
I said this to somebody about a couple of weeks ago. I was like, he's closer than anyone thinks, because I'm seeing stuff around, chatter around St. Louis that suggests, hey, he might be a little bit further along than we think, which is great news, because most in the press thought mid to late March for a return. And this, he's about, I don't know, maybe a month ahead of schedule, but it's not uncommon to see something like this. you hope and pray that his shoulder doesn't go again. Because if it does, then you sit there and go, oh, okay, maybe that's it. But it's great news for St. Louis. They do have a few more goal scorers than usual now. Obviously, Kyrou, Mike Hoffman scored tonight. The aforementioned power play specialist who's scoring a few more goals at even strength than usual this year. Go figure.
Yeah.
But they need every one of these because Arizona, for some reason, just has St. Louis's number. None of these games are easy. And obviously, Arizona took 3 of the first 4 before St. Louis took the last 2. Oh, this sets up an awesome Game 7 this week at the end of the weekend.
I know.
For all the marble. Oh, wait. It's just the regular season.
I know.
Sorry, everybody.
I know. It feels like we deserve it. We earn it because we've watched these games and they've been so entertaining. And yeah, like you said, you took the point right from me. I was going to say the youth movement as far as the Coyotes go offensively. Dvorak has been playing very well this year. Schmaltz is playing very well. And then Garland, as you mentioned, also doing well. And then for the Blues, it was also big tonight that Ville Husso was able to get a win. They aren't going to use him or rely on him as much as they relied on Jake Allen when he served as the backup, but he allowed 2 goals in his last outing and he picked up a win tonight. So not bad results from Husso so far. So the next game we're to go to is the Columbus Blue Jackets at the Chicago Blackhawks. And if you had Patrick Laine getting in a fight on your bingo card, I'd love to know what the odds were on a Patrick, if you could even get odds for such thing, the odds on a Patrick Laine fight tonight, because I can guarantee you would have been very stupid before puck drop for making that bet, and moments later you would have looked like a rich genius, because who would have expected Laine to drop the mitts and then also, by the way, score a beautiful goal in that game as well.
Yeah, David Singer from hockeyfights.com, and I quote, Patrick Laine in capitals, in question marks, with exclamation points and other various symbols that you can't repeat on TV. Huh? I bid. I'm like, okay, let me click on the link, and I'm like, he's fighting.
Yeah, and he actually held his own. Like you saw Brandon Hagel kind of, once he got his footing, give it to Laine at the end of the fight, but Laine got some good shots in at the beginning there.
It was a bit of a surprise. Considering while this is going on, I'm watching this game and I'm watching a little bit of the UFC undercard on paper, well, ESPN Plus, and wait. Hockey fighting,
yeah.
Fighting hockey. Okay, yeah. we got something here.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good. It's good to see. I mean, look, everything earlier in the week that happened with Patrick Laine and John Tortorella or whatever happened, didn't happen, etc. Naturally, and you knew this was going to come to a head in some way. I just don't think anybody expected it to be in the form of a fight.
No.
With Laine, but he's played well for Columbus. Obviously, along with Jack Roslovic, who's averaging a point a game for Columbus. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, I know. No one saw him playing this well. I mean,
no.
We
knew that.
Yes. Yeah, we knew that he needed an opportunity, and there had always been that logjam in Winnipeg. You had Scheifele, Brian Little when he was healthy, and then Paul Stastny during his various stints with the Jets. Yep. So there was always a bit of a logjam for Roslovic, but now you're seeing him back in his hometown, playing for his hometown team, and he's putting up great results so far. And then back to your point earlier about Laine, yeah, I think some people were already the benching to Laine was getting so much attention. I think people lost track of the sight that, okay, this guy actually scored 3 goals in his first 4 games for the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that the biggest knock on them before the trade was they can't score goals. And tonight you saw, well, you saw him do it with his fists, but then you saw him do it with his wrist as well, with a beautiful wrist shot. He was able to put top corner. So Patrick Laine, I think he has been everything you would expect as far as the Columbus Blue Jackets. If I'm a fan of the Jackets, I'm pretty happy with the return so far on that Dubois deal.
Yeah, it's pretty funny that right on cue, it's like as if NHL Network knows, hey, show that Patrick Laine fight. Uh, I do like the overhead view, and I thought actually Laine, he made one little mistake, and it caused him to fall down and go boom. But other than that, I would have called it a draw.
Yeah. Yeah, he held his own. He held his own. And then on the other side, you had Chicago obviously win this game 3-2 in overtime. The story for the Blackhawks remains between the pipes in the form of Kevin Lankinen. And just another unexpected storyline we've had in this 2020-21 NHL season. But Lankinen's been real solid. Like, he has been very good. You throw out that 6 goals against in the last game against Columbus, and you look at the rest of his body of work, and you're like,
yeah,
this guy's been impressive.
Look, normally for the most part, Lankinen has excellent skills when it comes to moving laterally. Well, at least what some teams are starting to realize is that you may have to just beat him with a lot of deception. And that kind of happened the other night, and it kept happening and happening and happening. Tonight was far from the case. Lankinen was excellent in net, and particularly in the third period. He didn't have to in overtime because basically Chicago had the puck and it was game over. But again, this was a good, simple game where it came down to another slot play where, and this one's funny because if you look at and I'm still laughing at this, DeBrincat, I don't know how he has the presence and hand-eye coordination to do something I would dream to be able to do once in my life.
Yeah.
But he doesn't tap the puck once to himself. He taps it twice to himself and then over and in the net.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, this is a completely different team at home. The Blackhawks are somehow 7-5-4 on the season now.
Yeah.
Huh? I mean,
it based off the start, you were thinking this team is not going to get the goaltending it needs to keep up in this division. This team, who knows if they have the center depth? Pius Suter. I like Suter a lot, but you're asking a lot out of him to be your number one guy down the middle. But I think the play of Patrick Kane hasn't dropped off. You have Alex DeBrincat basically forgetting everything that he did last year, because we remember DeBrincat, it was like, okay, he's coming off a 40-goal campaign. Let's see what he's got. And I think he finished with 18 goals last year. And
it was just a brutal year.
And it's 70 games. But you look at what he's done this year, he's got 6 goals in his last 5. So he has been very good. I think he's got 8 on the year in total. And you look at the play of DeBrincat and you look at the play of Patrick Kane, and then, like we mentioned, Lankinen's given them enough between the pipes to think, okay, this team is not a pushover on a night-to-night basis. They're going to give you a good game, and they clawed their way back into this one. Soderbergh ties it up late, and they pull off a pretty big win for them against Columbus.
Wow, that was big. I mean, especially for Chicago right now. Every win builds a little more confidence, and you have to wonder at this point with the way that division's set up. You don't want to say it just yet, but that P word, I mean, it's not terribly far off at this point.
No, put it this way: they're definitely closer to the Tampa Bay, Carolina, Dallas, Columbuses of that division than they are the Detroits and the Nashville Predators. And that is the next game on this slate that we're going to talk about. Detroit comes away with a 4-2 win. And just if you're the Nashville Predators, another game where it's not a great start. They try to patch it together in the third period, but there's not a whole lot to love with this team. Johansson's out. He wasn't playing great before he got injured. Guys like Arvidsson just aren't playing very well. And it's starting to snowball between the pipes as well. You look at Pecorine, he has not been excellent. UC Saros has actually been worse than Pecorine on the year, and I just don't see how this turns around for the Nashville Predators anytime soon. And obviously, nice for Detroit to pick up a big win. Robbie Fabry had a good game, but really the biggest takeaway here is what's up in Nashville.
Yeah, this is starting to look really rough fast, and kind of had mentioned it the other night. It's like, well, when does the hammer fall as far as a coach? And you have to start realistically going, well, okay, bad, worse. And then at one point, shots on goal were 20-7 Detroit in your own building.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't let that happen. Not against the Detroit Red Wings. Not against anybody, but especially not Detroit.
But I mean, Nashville had 10 shots on goal through almost 40 minutes. And you can't have this keep happening. And look, to be fair, Nashville's last 3 games were against Tampa twice and Florida once.
Yeah, definitely some heavyweights. Forgot to mention Florida too amongst those teams at the top of the Central. Florida's right up there as well. But yeah,
it's rough. I mean, look, you look at, but I mean, you start looking at like Saros's last 5 starts and go, oh, well, it's been rough.
Yeah, I dropped him in one fantasy league I'm in. It's a shallower league, but I'm kind of like a no goalie approach with that, and I just said I can't. There's no point in keeping him around.
And Rene's been better, but it's funny, Rene, and it's been a bit of a venture, not because of how poorly he's played, because that's actually not the case. He's actually been pretty decent. But it seems like Nashville gives up these prime scoring chances out of nowhere. And oftentimes they end up in the back of the net. It's a big problem for them. They just can't help it. You go down 4-0 to Detroit, though.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
I mean, that's rough. I mean, you don't want to say it, but it's as close to a fireable offense as you can get.
Yeah. When you fall behind to Detroit like that, it's just ugly.
Or better yet, when your penalty kill is worse than Detroit's.
Yeah. There's a sign. There's a big indicator that things are going wrong.
National special teams percentage right now is actually worse than Detroit's. So when you take their power play percentage and you combine it with their penalty kill percentage, it's actually worse than Detroit's. You can't have that and expect to come anywhere close to making the playoffs.
No, and
especially in this league.
Exactly. And I think it's good that you mentioned the giveaways, because this is a team that's not built to win 5-4, 6-5. This is a team that's supposed to win tight checking defensive games and turning the puck over like they have. It's not a good combination one bit, but we're going to move on to the next game here. Carolina at Dallas. Another good game. This one went to the shootout, and even though Carolina comes away with the win, Dallas has to feel at least somewhat like a winner. They were able to steal a point late in that game. An excellent play by Miro Heiskanen to then eventually set up the Joe Pavelski game-tying goal. But Sebastian Aho, I don't know what he was doing on that play. It's a 2-on-1 with an empty net. I understand, Teravainen's been struggling. He did get on the score sheet tonight. Maybe you want to get him another goal, but it cost him in a big way. But just a great heads-up play by Heiskanen, who hasn't been able to find the back of the net yet, but he has still made his impact felt on the Stars team.
It's something else, too, because, I mean, there's this game was completely weird backwards and whatever you want to call it, because there's like a period in this game of about, again, 6 or 7 minutes when Carolina was dominant, scored all their goals in regulation, at least, their 3 goals. And then the rest of the game was basically all Dallas. uh, it's amazing and crazy to watch this game and go, huh, well, how the heck did Carolina win this? Because if you didn't watch that little part late second period into a little bit of the third, and you missed like that stretch, you would have thought this was a 4 or 5-1 Dallas win just from watching it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Dallas dominated the play for the majority of the game. Carolina got some good goaltending from Alex Nedeljkovic tonight. I thought he played well. But Jordan Staal stays hot for Carolina. He stays hot.
You just throw your hands up and go, I mean, look, I said this in daily fantasy to somebody. I was like, nobody is fixing this guy's price.
Yeah.
This is starting to become like shades of Sean Monahan's rookie year where he had 60-something points, and FanDuel had him at like 3,900 for the entire season.
Yeah.
It just, his number did not go up till the very, very, very end of the year. And it was just people are just looking at each other like, how is this possible? But,
yeah,
you just look, he's still not owned in quite a few of my leagues.
Yeah, he's available on a lot of waiver wires. Last time I checked, I think he was somewhere between 25 to 30% rostered on Yahoo.
Yeah.
So he's still out there in a lot of leagues. And if you play in leagues, the category leagues that count face-offs as well,
Right.
He's been killing it at the face-off dot. And as we mentioned, he's been fine with the back of the net and fine with the score sheet. And then I also think it's worth talking about Teravainen getting his first goal of the season, snapping a 7-game pointless streak. Just a big sigh of relief if you have Teravainen in fantasy hockey, because things were looking dicey. It was not pretty with Teravainen. Yeah. So good for him. Jason Robertson, he's been playing well for the Dallas Stars. He's now got 5 points in his last 4 games played. So Dallas, lucky and unlucky to only get 1 point. Like we mentioned, it felt like they dominated play for the majority of this game, but they were able to kind of squeak a last-minute goal in just to get the point. And now this brings us to the final game of the night, Calgary at Vancouver. And you want to talk about teams dominating for a majority of the game and having to eke one out. Vancouver, I don't know, like these last 2 games, they have played so well. And if Jacob Markstrom wasn't this vengeful, revenge-seeking human being, I think they walk away with these 2 points in both these games pretty easily. They lose on Thursday night. I said immediately after that Thursday night loss, the Canucks will win on Saturday. They come out, they win tonight. But man, nothing about that win was easy. And it was only because Jacob Markstrom was standing on his head and doing backflips and cartwheels between the pipes for the Calgary Flames. There's no other explanation for why this was even a close contest.
Yeah, this is something. This will be something for a textbook study of going, how the heck does this happen? Yeah. But I mean, I looked at one point and I thought I saw 40, almost 45 on 5 shots on net for Vancouver, and I scratched my head. So I looked this up real fast, and I couldn't believe this. And indeed, it was 39 shots on net at even strength for Vancouver tonight.
It was 39. Crazy. It was crazy, and it was nonstop. It was from the beginning of the game right to the very end to that empty netter that they got late. But it just was not easy. Nothing came easy for them in that game. Sam Bennett, worth mentioning because of all the trade rumors going around, and obviously we know he is a available asset. He gets another goal tonight for them, his second straight Saturday with a goal. Mr. Saturday Night, Sam Bennett. So just an interesting little saga going on there in Calgary. But like we said, the big storyline is Vancouver snapping a 6-game losing streak, with maybe one of the most dominant start to finish efforts we've seen all year.
This is nuts.
It's the
It's going to be a fun kind of nuts.
nature of the season. Thanks again
Oh,
so much, Chris, for
not
being
a
on.
problem.